The elevator doors opened, and Marcus Webb already knew it was over. He could feel it in the way the security guard at the front desk did not meet his eyes. He could feel it in the strange quiet of the lobby, the kind of quiet that only happens when people know something and are pretending they do not. He had walked through those glass doors every morning for 13 years. He knew what the lobby felt like at 8:01 in the morning. He knew the sound of it, the rhythm of it, the particular echo of shoes on marble. And he knew, with the certainty of a man who had been bracing for a fall long enough to recognize the ground rushing up, that today was different. Derek Hargrove was standing near the reception desk. Not sitting in his office on the 14th floor, not in a conference room, not anywhere a person would normally be at this hour. He was standing in the lobby, in his pressed navy suit, holding a sealed white envelope, and looking at Marcus the way a man looks at something he has already decided about. Marcus was 3 minutes late. 3 minutes. He had checked his watch in the car, in the parking garage, in the elevator. He had counted them the way a person counts things when they are already certain the counting does not matter. 3 minutes and 40 seconds, to be precise. He could have told Hargrove exactly how many seconds he had missed by. He could have explained where those seconds went, what consumed them, what kept him from those polished glass doors at exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, the way Derek Hargrove required of every person in his company. He did not get the chance to explain anything. Hargrove walked toward him, with the slow, deliberate pace of a man who had rehearsed this moment. There were no raised voices. There was no dramatic pause. He simply extended the envelope and said, with the flat calm of someone reading from a document they had memorized, "We discussed this, Marcus. I am sorry it came to this." 4 words. We discussed this. 13 years folded into 4 words, and a sealed white envelope. Marcus stood there for a moment. He was aware of the security guard. He was aware of a woman from accounting who had just come through the revolving door and had stopped walking, pretending to look at her phone. He was aware of the hum of the air conditioning, the faint sound of traffic outside, the weight of the envelope in his hand. He was aware of everything except what to say. He took the envelope. He nodded once. He pressed the elevator button to go back down. The lobby was glass and chrome and completely indifferent to him, and the elevator doors closed, and that was the end of 13 years. What Derek Hargrove did not know, what he had not asked, and would not have wanted to be slowed down by, was where Marcus had been at 2 in the morning, not sleeping, not at a bar, not anywhere a man would choose to be on a Tuesday night when he had work the next day and a 7-year-old daughter at home who depended on him for everything. He had been at St. Catherine's Pediatric Emergency. His daughter, Lily, had woken up at 1:15 in the morning shaking. He had touched her forehead and felt the heat radiating off her skin before his hand even made full contact. Her temperature was 104 degrees. He had not paused to think about what to do. He had wrapped her in her blanket, buckled her into the back seat in her pajamas, and driven through empty streets to the hospital, with one hand on the wheel and one hand reaching back to hold hers. He sat in a plastic chair in the pediatric emergency waiting room for 3 hours. The chair was the kind that had been designed by someone who had never actually had to sit in it for more than 10 minutes. His back ached. The fluorescent lights were the kind that make everyone look a little unwell. He watched nurses move quickly and quietly, and he watched other parents with their own tired faces and their own frightened eyes, and he held Lily's small hand and talked to her in a low voice about nothing in particular, about the things she loved, about her favorite cartoon, about the dog she had been asking for since she was 5, just to keep her calm, just to give her something to focus on, other than how bad she felt. The fever broke at 4:47 in the morning. He knew the exact time because he looked at the clock on the wall the moment he felt her body stop fighting and start resting. The doctor, a young woman with tired eyes and a kind voice, told him Lily was fine, that it was a viral infection, that she needed rest and fluids and the medication they would prescribe at the desk. Marcus thanked her 3 times. He could not help it. He thanked her 3 times and then he sat back down in the plastic chair and took a very slow breath. He was home by 6:30 in the morning. He put Lily in her bed, checked on her twice, made sure she was breathing evenly, and then stood in his kitchen and looked at the clock. He had 90 minutes. He showered. He made coffee. He called his neighbor, an older woman named Gloria who had a key to his apartment, and who had helped him more times than he could count in the 3 years since he had been doing this alone. Gloria said she would come over and check on Lily. She said it without being asked, because she was that kind of person, and Marcus was grateful in the quiet and complete way that goes beyond what words can actually hold. He was in his car at 7:15. He hit a road closure on Whitmore Avenue that no app had warned him about. He sat in the redirect for 11 minutes. He parked, he ran, and still, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. In the elevator going down, he opened the envelope. It was what he expected. A termination letter, clean and official, citing the attendance policy he had signed when he joined the company and the 2 previous warnings he had received, one for a morning last January when Lily's school called during drop-off, and one for a Thursday in March when he had missed a tire and pulled into the garage at 8:09. The letter was politely worded. It thanked him for his contributions. It outlined his final paycheck and the timeline for returning his building access card. It did not ask how he was. It did not ask why. Marcus stood in the lobby of the parking garage and read the letter twice. Then he folded it, put it back in the envelope, and put the envelope in his jacket pocket. He sat in his car for a while. He did not start the engine immediately. He sat with both hands on the steering wheel and looked through the windshield at the concrete wall of the parking structure, which had nothing to offer him and made no apologies for that. He thought about Lily, still asleep in her room, with her fever down, and her small chest rising and falling the way it should. He thought about the insurance, the health coverage he carried through his job, which would end at the close of the month. Lily's asthma medication was on that plan. He knew what it cost without the plan. He had looked it up once, the way you look up the price of something you hope you will never have to pay, just to know. He knew the number. He did not like the number. He thought about the rent, due in 17 days. He thought about Dana. That was the thought he always arrived at eventually, the one that waited for him at the end of every calculation, every worst-case scenario, every moment when the weight of everything fell on him in a single, unbroken piece. Dana, his wife, who had died of a brain aneurysm on an ordinary Wednesday morning 3 years ago, while Lily was at preschool and Marcus was at his desk on the 9th floor, reviewing quarterly numbers. He had gotten the call at 10:23 in the morning from a number he did not recognize, and he had almost not answered it. He had answered it. And after that there was just Marcus and Lily and the particular mathematics of being 2 people where there used to be 3. He started the car. He needed to pick up Lily's prescription. He needed to go home. He needed to sit across from his daughter at the kitchen table, while she ate toast and drank apple juice, and he needed to smile at her in the way that communicated everything was fine. Because she was 7 years old, and she did not need to carry this with him. Not yet. Not ever if he could manage it. He pulled out of the parking garage into the late morning sun, and the city went on around him the way cities do, completely unmoved by the specific weight any individual person happens to be carrying through it. He did not feel sorry for himself exactly, or if he did not let himself stay there. There was too much to do, and self-pity was a luxury that required a certain amount of free time he had never had. What he felt instead was a familiar kind of tiredness, the kind that lives in the bones rather than the body, and something else underneath it, something he did not examine too closely because it made him feel guilty. Relief. The job was gone. The envelope was in his pocket. The 13 years were over, and somewhere underneath the fear and the calculations and the genuine, pressing weight of what came next, there was the smallest, most embarrassing thread of relief, like a knot he had not known he was carrying had come loose. He did not know what to do with that. So he drove. He picked up the prescription. He went home to his daughter. He made her soup she did not finish, and sat beside her on the couch while she fell asleep watching her cartoon. And he did not move for a long time, because she was warm, and she was here, and her fever was gone, and the rest of it, all of it, could wait until she woke up. Marcus Webb had lost his job that morning. He had sat in a hospital for most of the night before it. He was 38 days from being in real trouble, by his most conservative estimate. And for the first time in longer than he could honestly remember, he had nowhere he was required to be. He sat in the quiet of his own living room, his daughter asleep against his shoulder, and outside the window the afternoon moved on without him, unhurried and unremarkable, giving nothing away about what the night would bring. The park was 2 blocks from their apartment, close enough that Lily could sometimes hear the fountain from her bedroom window when the wind was right. She had told Marcus this once with great authority, the way children announce things they have discovered about the world, as though they are the first person to have ever noticed. He had believed her completely, the way he believed most things she told him. She was running in the grass now, the unself-conscious, all-in running of a child who has no opinion about what she looks like doing it. Her arms were a little wide. Her sneakers were flashing their lights with each step, because she had asked for the ones with lights, and Marcus had not had a good reason to say no. She was 7 years old, and her fever was gone, and the fountain was going, and the afternoon was warm, and she had no idea that anything in her world had changed. Marcus sat on the bench nearest the fountain and did not do the math. He was trying not to do the math. He had been doing the math since he pulled out of the parking garage, in the car, in the pharmacy, in the elevator going up to their apartment, and he needed a few minutes where he was just a man, watching his daughter run in a park without calculating what everything cost. He was not entirely successful. Rent, 17 days. He pressed his palms flat against his thighs and looked at the fountain. He had 6 months of savings, roughly. He had built it carefully, the way a person builds something when they know they are the only safety net for someone smaller than them. It was enough for a while. It was not enough to be careless with. He needed to update his resume. He needed to call his contact at Meridian Group, a man named Paul he had worked with early in his career who had mentioned openings twice in the past year. He needed to figure out the insurance before the end of the month. He needed to stop doing the math for 5 minutes. "She yours?" Marcus turned. The man on the adjacent bench had not been there 5 minutes ago, or Marcus had not noticed him, which amounted to the same thing. He was older, somewhere in his early 60s, with the kind of face that had done a great deal of living and seemed comfortable with all of it. He was wearing a simple gray jacket and holding a paper bag, and he had been tossing small pieces of bread to a cluster of pigeons who had materialized from nowhere with the efficiency of professionals. He was looking at Lily. "She is," Marcus said. It came out more simply than he intended. Not guarded, not polite, not the usual careful answer a man gives a stranger in a park. Just, "She is." 2 words that contained, in that moment, more than he would have been able to explain. The man nodded slowly, as though the answer had told him something. He threw another piece of bread. The pigeons reorganized without gratitude. "How old?" 7. "Good age," the man said, and he did not elaborate, but the way he said it suggested he meant it precisely, that there was a specific quality about 7 that he had observed and kept. They sat in silence for a while. Lily had found the edge of the fountain and was now walking along the low stone border of it with her arms out, balancing, deeply focused on a task that no one had assigned her. Marcus watched her and felt the familiar doubled thing he always felt watching her, the love and the fear running alongside each other, inseparable, like 2 threads in the same cord. The man's name, it turned out, was Raymond Okafor. He offered it the way older people sometimes do, without being asked, as though names are simply information that polite people share. Marcus gave his, in return. Raymond had lived in the neighborhood for 22 years. He was retired. He had been a school principal for 31 years, at a middle school 3 miles east, the kind of institution where the windows were old and the funding was thin, and the students came in carrying things that had nothing to do with homework. He said this without complaint or particular pride, just as a fact, the way people describe a landscape they know very well. He did not ask Marcus what he did for work. Not then. He asked if Marcus wanted some of the bread for the pigeons, and Marcus said no thank you, and Raymond threw another piece, and the afternoon continued. Lily came over eventually, the way children drift back to their parents when they have exhausted the immediate territory and need a new starting point. She looked at Raymond with the direct, unfiltered curiosity of someone who has not yet learned to pretend she is not looking. "Are those your birds?" she asked. Raymond considered this seriously. "They follow me," he said. "I am not sure that is the same thing as mine." Lily thought about this. "My dad says the cat that comes to our window is not ours either," she said, "but it comes every day." "Then I think we are in the same situation," Raymond said. Lily smiled. She had her mother's smile, the kind that took over her whole face before she could decide whether to use it. Marcus looked away for a moment. Raymond caught it. He did not say anything, but he caught it. The way a man who spent 31 years watching young people carry invisible weight learns to catch things without making a production of it. Lily ran back to the fountain. They sat in silence for a while longer. Raymond finished the bread. The pigeons drifted away. "Long day?" Raymond said finally. It was not a prying question. It was the kind of thing you say to someone when you can see the shape of something without knowing the details. The same way you can tell a room is cold before you step fully into it. Marcus looked at the fountain. "Longer than most," he said. Raymond nodded. He did not push. He folded the empty paper bag into a neat rectangle and put it in his jacket pocket, and they sat in the warmth of the afternoon, while Lily balanced on stone edges, and the water kept going, and the pigeons were long gone, and Marcus felt something he had not expected to feel that day. Not better, exactly, but less alone. He had forgotten what that felt like. Not dramatically, not as a tragic thing. Just quietly, in the way you stop noticing a sound when it has been absent long enough. He had been alone with his thinking for so long that sitting in silence with another person who was not Lily, who was not asking anything of him and not measuring him against anything, felt strange in the way that unexpected kindness always feels a little strange. He did not say any of this. He asked Raymond how long he had been retired. Raymond said 4 years. He said it was an adjustment. He said the hardest part was not the loss of the work itself, but the loss of the structure, the way the day had previously organized itself around things that needed to be done, and how without that you had to learn to organize it yourself, which was a different skill entirely, and one nobody prepared you for. Marcus listened. He thought, privately, that he might be about to learn something about that. They talked for almost an hour, about the neighborhood, about the school Raymond had run, the students he still thought about, the ones who had sent him letters years later from lives they had built, about Lily's love of the fountain and her theory about the cat, about nothing that required anything difficult from either of them. When it was time to go, Marcus gathered Lily's jacket from the bench and called her name. She came running, her shoes still blinking. "Nice to meet you, Raymond," she said, with great formality, because Marcus had taught her to do that. "You as well, Miss Lily," Raymond said, with equal formality, and she seemed very pleased with the title. Marcus lifted a hand in goodbye. Raymond lifted one back. Walking home, Lily slipped her hand into Marcus's and said nothing for a whole block, which was unusual for her. Then she said, "I like that man." Marcus looked down at her. "Me too," he said. He meant it in a way he would not have been able to fully explain, the kind of meaning that does not require explanation, because it lives below the level of words, in the part of a person that simply registers whether something was real or not. That had been real. A bench, a paper bag, some pigeons, an hour of easy conversation with a stranger who did not require him to be anything. He carried it home with him. He did not know, walking those 2 blocks with Lily's hand in his, and her shoes blinking against the sidewalk, that the car would not start in 9 hours. He did not know that the parking lot of a closed hardware store would turn out to matter more than any office he had ever sat in. He just walked home, made dinner, put Lily to bed, kissed her forehead 3 times, one for each year she had been alive before he lost track of the count, stood in her doorway for a moment in the dark, and then he went back out, because he could not be still. The night was warm and flat and unhelpful. Marcus sat behind the wheel of his car, in the parking lot of a strip mall on Briarwood Avenue, and tried the ignition for the 4th time. It gave him the same answer it had given him the previous 3 times, which was a sound like something trying and failing, a small mechanical effort that went nowhere. He let go of the key. He looked through the windshield at the strip mall, a closed hardware store, a nail salon with its sign-off, a dry cleaner with a dark window and a handwritten note on the door that he could not read from where he sat. And at the far end, inexplicably open at this hour, a laundromat, its fluorescent light pouring out into the parking lot in a wide yellow stripe like a distress signal someone had forgotten to turn off. He had not planned to be here. That was the honest truth of it. He had put Lily to bed, stood in her doorway for a moment, as he always did, and then returned to the kitchen and sat at the table and tried to be still. He had tried for 40 minutes. He had his laptop open. He had looked at his resume. He had looked at the job listings Paul had mentioned. He had started 3 different emails and deleted all 3. He could not sit. He did not know exactly what he was looking for when he got in the car. Motion, maybe. The feeling of going somewhere, even if nowhere specific, was calling him. Sometimes, when the walls of a small apartment feel like they are actively measuring the distance between where a person is and where they need to be, moving is the only thing that does anything. He had driven for about 20 minutes. He had ended up here. And now the car would not start. He checked his phone. 11% battery. He had a charger somewhere, but it was at home on the kitchen counter because he had not thought he would need it. He opened the roadside assistance app. 45-minute estimated wait. He had used the service twice this year already. He called anyway. The automated voice confirmed the wait time in the pleasant, impersonal tone of something that does not grasp what 45 minutes in a parking lot at night actually feels like. He set the phone on the passenger seat and looked at the laundromat. Through the glass, he could see 2 of the machines running. A plastic chair near the window. A television mounted high on the wall showing something with the sound off. No one visible from where he sat. He thought about going in, not for any particular reason, just to be somewhere that was not the car. He decided he would give it 10 more minutes, and then go in and sit in the plastic chair under the fluorescent light, and wait for the roadside truck with the resigned dignity of a man who had already used up his dramatic reserves for the day. At 9:23, a pair of headlights swept across the lot. An old Buick, dark green, moved slowly through the entrance and parked in the middle of the lot, 2 spaces from the laundromat door. Marcus watched without particular interest. The door opened, and a man got out. Marcus recognized him before the man turned around. Raymond Okafor reached into the back seat and pulled out a laundry bag. He had changed out of his gray jacket and was wearing a simpler shirt, the kind of thing a person wears when they are not going anywhere that requires anything from them. He turned toward the laundromat and stopped. He had seen the car with its hood still up. Marcus had popped it earlier, in the optimistic belief that looking at the engine might suggest something helpful, which it had not. Raymond crossed the lot. He leaned down and looked through the driver's window, and his expression when he saw Marcus was not surprise exactly. It was something quieter, the acknowledgement of a thing that is slightly too specific to be entirely accidental. "Car trouble," he said. It was not a question. "It stopped," Marcus said. Raymond looked at the open hood. He looked back at Marcus. "You call anyone?" "Roadside. 45 minutes." Raymond set his laundry bag on the ground. He went to his own car and opened the trunk. He came back with a set of jumper cables that had clearly been in that trunk for a long time, coiled and heavy. The kind of cables that inspire confidence not because they are new but because they are exactly the right thing. "My wife," Raymond said, connecting the first clamp, "used to say that a man without jumper cables is a man who believes the world will always cooperate with him." Marcus got out of the car to help. "She sounds like she was practical." "She was everything," Raymond said, simply, and moved to the second clamp. They worked without rushing. Raymond knew what he was doing. He explained nothing, because there was nothing to explain, and Marcus appreciated that. The absence of narration, the focus on just doing the thing that needed doing. They let the charge build. Raymond rested one hand on the side of his car and looked up at the sky, which was clear, and offered a few stars and minded its own business. "You eat today?" he asked. A pause. "Lunch," Marcus said. Raymond looked at him in a way that communicated, without a single additional word, that lunch was not an acceptable answer at 9:30 at night. "There is a diner," Raymond said, 3 blocks east. "Stays open late. Good soup. I should wait for the roadside truck. Call and cancel. I will drive you home when the car starts." He said it without inflection, as though the offer required no discussion. "You have a daughter at home." Marcus looked at him. "Gloria is there," he said, meaning his neighbor. "Good. Then there is no hurry." Raymond glanced at the cars. "Give it another few minutes." The charging built in the quiet of the lot. A faint hum. The laundromat light continued its yellow advertisement to no one in particular. Marcus canceled the roadside call. He was not entirely sure why he did it so easily, without arguing himself into or out of it. Perhaps because he was tired of arguing with himself. Perhaps because Raymond Okafor was the kind of person who makes an offer and means it without any architecture underneath. No expectation, no ledger being kept, just a straightforward extension of something in the direction of a person who needs it. He tried the ignition. The engine turned over. Neither of them said anything for a moment. "Good," Raymond said. He disconnected the cables with the practiced ease of someone who had done it many times. He coiled them and put them back in the trunk. He picked up his laundry bag. "Leave your car. Come inside first. 10 minutes. He looked at Marcus. "You can sit in a plastic chair for 10 minutes. Then I will do my laundry in peace and you will drive home." Marcus sat in the running car for a moment. He turned it off. He got out. The laundromat was warm and smelled like detergent, and the particular staleness of a room that has been heated by machines all day. The television overhead was showing a cooking competition with the sound off. There was a vending machine in the corner that offered chips and crackers and a selection of drinks in faded packaging. Raymond loaded a machine with the calm efficiency of someone doing a routine task. Marcus sat in the plastic chair. It was the same species of chair as the one at the pediatric emergency, designed by the same philosophy of minimal comfort for maximum function. He was suddenly, completely exhausted. Not the tired of not sleeping, though that was there too. The tired of holding everything for a long time without putting it down anywhere. Raymond fed coins into the machine and pressed the buttons and sat in the chair next to Marcus, and the machine began to run, and the sound of it, the low tumbling cycle, was unexpectedly companionable. "Long night," Raymond said. "Long day before it," Marcus said. Raymond looked at the television. The cooking competition had produced something dramatic. The contestants were reacting to whatever it was. Without sound, it looked like a performance of feelings, rather than the feelings themselves. "You want to tell me about it?" Raymond asked. He said it without pressure, the way a man asks something when he genuinely does not mind if the answer is no. Marcus looked at the machine going around. And then, to his own surprise, he started talking. He told Raymond about the lobby, about Hargrove and the envelope, about the hospital the night before, the plastic chair, Lily's temperature, the clock on the wall at 4:47 in the morning, when the fever finally gave. He told him about the road closure on Whitmore Avenue, and the 11 minutes he had sat in traffic trying to calculate whether he could make it, knowing he probably could not. He told him about the 3 minutes, the 4 words. He told it plainly, without arranging it into a story with a lesson, just as a sequence of things that had happened to him over the past 18 hours. And Raymond listened the way he had probably listened to 10,000 students over 31 years, without interrupting, without reframing, without offering a counter-experience or a silver lining. He just listened, which is rarer than most people think. When Marcus stopped talking, the laundry machine was still running. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What kind of work did you do there?" Marcus told him, financial analysis, portfolio risk assessment. He had been good at it. He knew he had been good at it, and that knowledge was its own specific pain, the gap between being good at something and being treated as disposable by it. Raymond nodded slowly. He was doing something internally, some kind of quiet thinking, that Marcus could almost see the edge of without knowing its content. "I know someone," Raymond said. Marcus looked at him. "A man I worked with 15 years ago. Oliver Grant. He runs a firm now, small operation, non-profit financial consulting. Does planning and risk work for community organizations, schools, housing groups? Good work." He paused. "He has been looking. He mentioned it to me last month." Marcus said nothing. "I am not saying it is certain," Raymond said. "I am saying call him, tell him I sent you. He will pick up." He reached into the pocket of his shirt and produced a small notebook, the kind with a spiral at the top. He wrote a name and a number in clean, careful handwriting, and tore the page out and handed it to Marcus. Marcus held it. Oliver Grant. A phone number with a city area code. Raymond's handwriting was the handwriting of someone who had written things down for other people to read for 30 years. Clear and deliberate. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus asked. It was not a suspicious question. It was an honest one. He genuinely wanted to know. Raymond looked at the television for a moment. The cooking show had moved on. Some other small drama was unfolding silently. "I had a son," Raymond said. He was good at his work too. He needed someone to say the right thing at the right time, and the right person was not there. He folded the notebook and put it back in his pocket. "I am there now. That is all." Marcus looked at the folded piece of paper in his hand. The laundry machine went around. The fluorescent light hummed. Outside, the parking lot was empty, and the strip mall was dark, and the city was doing what cities do at this hour, which is continue without comment. He did not know yet that Raymond would go home tonight and do something that had been waiting 7 years to be done. He did not know what that was. He would not know for a while. He just knew that he was sitting in a laundromat at 10 o'clock at night with a stranger who had given him jumper cables and a name on a piece of paper, and nothing else except the specific quality of being completely present in a moment that no one would ever make a movie about. "Thank you," Marcus said. It came out the way real thanks does, without decoration. Raymond nodded. He looked at his laundry machine. 15 more minutes on the cycle," he said. "Then you should go home to your daughter." Marcus stayed for the 15 minutes. They did not talk much more. The machine went around. The television played its silent drama. The light buzzed its steady, unremarkable buzz. When the cycle ended, Marcus stood. Raymond began pulling laundry from the machine without ceremony. "I will call him tomorrow," Marcus said. "First thing," Raymond said, not looking up. Marcus walked to his car. He sat behind the wheel for a moment, the engine running, the piece of paper in his jacket pocket. He drove home through streets that were quiet and mostly empty, and he parked and went upstairs and stood in Lily's doorway in the dark and listened to her breathe. She was fine. She was completely fine. He went to the kitchen. He put the piece of paper on the counter where he would see it in the morning. He stood at the window for a moment and looked at the street below. He thought about Dana. He thought about the 3 years since her. He thought about the specific ache of being capable and trying and still finding the ground gone from under you in a lobby at 8:03 in the morning. Then he thought about Raymond Okafor, who drove a Buick with a dented rear panel and kept jumper cables in the trunk because his wife had told him to, who sat in a laundromat on Tuesday nights and fed pigeons on Thursday afternoons, who had written a name and a number in careful handwriting and handed it across without making it into anything larger than it was. Marcus stood at the window for a long time. Then he went to bed. He slept, for the first time in a while, without lying awake doing the math. Wednesday morning arrived the way Wednesdays always did, without ceremony, without any particular announcement that it was going to be different from the one before it. Marcus was up before Lily. He made coffee first because he had learned early in the years of doing this alone that the first few minutes of the morning belonged to him, before the day began its demands, before Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway with her hair still pressed flat from sleep, and her eyes at half capacity, and her opinion about what was for breakfast. Those few minutes were the seam between whatever the night had been and what the day was going to require of him, and he had learned to treat them as something worth protecting. He stood at the counter with his coffee and looked at the piece of paper. Oliver Grant, the number beneath the name, Raymond's clean, careful handwriting. He had not slept long, but he had slept deeply, the way a person sleeps when something that has been clenched for a long time has loosened, even slightly. He felt it when he woke up. Not better exactly, but less compressed, as though the pressure had shifted from something crushing to something manageable, and the distinction between those two things was enormous, even when the circumstances were technically the same. He heard Lily's door. She appeared in the kitchen doorway exactly as he had expected, hair flat, eyes at half capacity, wearing her pajamas with the small stars on them. She looked at him. He looked at her. "Good morning," she said, with great seriousness. "Good morning," he said. This was their routine. It had started when she was 4, this exchange of greetings conducted with complete sincerity, as though they had not just been sleeping 15 feet apart, and were instead meeting after a long separation. He did not know where it had come from. He did not question it. She climbed onto her chair at the kitchen table and placed her hands flat on the table surface and waited, because she knew what came next. He made her oatmeal. the kind she liked, with the brown sugar arranged in a circle on top, because she had once told him a circle was a smile if you were looking at it from the sky, and he had been doing it that way ever since. She ate. He sat across from her with his coffee and watched her eat in the contented, self-contained way that children eat when the food is right, and the morning is safe, and nothing is required of them yet. He felt the familiar ache of it, the love that had no adequate container. He had felt it every morning since she was born, and he did not think it was going to change. He did not tell her about the job. She was 7. She did not need to know that things were uncertain. She would know what she needed to know when she needed to know it, and his job in the meantime was to make the oatmeal with the brown sugar circle and walk her to the bus and smile in a way that told her the world was steady underneath her. He packed her bag. He checked her inhaler, a small blue device that lived in the front pocket of the bag, the first thing he always checked, the thing he had checked more times than any other single action in the past 3 years. He helped her with her shoes, the ones with the lights. They walked to the corner together. The morning was clear and still cool, the kind of morning that feels like a small gift before the day gets fully underway. Lily held his hand without being asked. She told him something about her friend Emma at school, and something Emma had said about a color. He lost track of the exact content because he was also watching for the bus and thinking about the piece of paper in his pocket, but he made the sounds that indicated he was listening, which he mostly was. The bus came. She let go of his hand and went up the steps without looking back, which was right, which was how it should be. A 7-year-old getting on a bus with the confidence of someone who knows the world is going to be there when they arrive. He watched until the door closed. He watched until the bus turned and disappeared at the end of the block. He stood on the corner for a moment. Then he went back inside, climbed the stairs, and called the number. It rang twice. Then, "This is Oliver." Not a voicemail, a person, alert and present, as though he had been awake for some time already. "My name is Marcus Webb," Marcus said. "Raymond Okafor told me to call. He said you would pick up." A brief pause. Then Raymond. Oliver Grant said the name the way you say the name of someone whose judgment you have trusted for a long time. "How is he?" "He was well last night," Marcus said. "We met in a parking lot." A small sound from Oliver. Not quite a laugh. Something between recognition and amusement. "That sounds about right. Tell me about yourself, Marcus." And Marcus did. He was direct, and he was specific, because those were the things that had always served him, and because Oliver Grant, from the first sentence, was clearly someone who was not interested in performance. He told Oliver what he had done for 13 years, and what he was good at, and what he had learned, and what he was looking for. He said it plainly, the way you speak when you have nothing to arrange and nothing to protect, when the envelope is already in your jacket pocket and the only direction is forward. Oliver listened. He asked 3 questions, each one precise, the kind of questions that reveal, in the asking, that the person asking understands the subject deeply. Marcus answered each one fully. The conversation lasted 18 minutes. At the end, Oliver said, "I have a position. It has been open for 6 weeks, and I have not found the right person. Can you come in Thursday?" Marcus said yes. He sat at the kitchen table after the call and did not immediately do anything. He looked at the window. He looked at the piece of paper on the counter with Oliver Grant's name on it in Raymond's handwriting. He thought about a parking lot on Briarwood Avenue, and a man with jumper cables and a laundry bag and a small spiral notebook. He thought about a bench beside a fountain and a paper bag of bread for pigeons and an hour of conversation that cost nothing and was worth more than he could have anticipated. He thought about how much depends, in any life, on who happens to be in the same parking lot at the same time. How much depends on the person who keeps the jumper cables, because someone they loved told them to. How much depends on the difference between a person who asks a question and waits for the answer, and a person who fills the silence before it has a chance to say anything. He picked up his phone. He sent Raymond a text message. It said, he picked up. Thursday interview. Thank you. Raymond replied 20 minutes later. The message contained 4 words. Let me know how. Marcus smiled. He put the phone down. He opened his laptop and spent the rest of the morning preparing for Thursday, with the focused attention of a man who has been reminded that he is capable, which is sometimes all a person needs. Not an open door exactly, but the reminder that they are the kind of person who can walk through one. Thursday came. He wore the good jacket. He left early. The interview was with Oliver Grant in a small office above a community credit union on the east side of the city. The office had bookshelves that were slightly too full, and a window that looked onto a courtyard where someone had planted tomatoes in a bed of raised soil. Oliver Grant was 61, compact and efficient, the kind of person whose energy is never wasted on anything that does not matter. They talked for 2 hours. Not an interview in the formal sense. A conversation between two people who both understand something and are finding out whether they understand it in compatible ways. Marcus answered everything honestly, including the parts about why he had left his previous position, which he told without drama and without performance, just as it had happened, because Oliver seemed like someone who would know if it were arranged differently. Oliver offered him the role at the end of the second hour. Not eventually. At the end of the second hour, directly, without the performance of deliberation. He named the salary, which was more than Marcus had been making at Hargrove Financial. He described the work, which was more meaningful than what Marcus had been doing at Hargrove Financial. He said the team was small and good, and that they needed someone who could think carefully, and was not afraid of complexity, and that Raymond had told him Marcus was exactly that kind of person. Marcus accepted. He walked out of the office above the credit union into the afternoon sun, and stood on the sidewalk for a moment. The city moved around him, entirely unchanged, entirely indifferent, which was fine, which was exactly fine. He called Gloria to tell her he would not need her to sit with Lily on Thursday evenings anymore, then caught himself, because he had not told her about the job loss in the first place. He called her anyway. She listened. She said what she said, which was warm and matter-of-fact and exactly like her. He picked Lily up from school himself that afternoon, which he had not been able to do on a regular day in years. She came out of the school doors and saw him, and her face changed the way her face changed. Completely and at once. The smile that was her mother's smile. She ran to him. He caught her. "Why are you here?" she asked, not as an objection, just as information she wanted. "I work somewhere new now," he said. "The hours are different." She thought about this while he buckled her in. "Is it better?" she asked. He looked at her in the rearview mirror. "Yes," he said. "It is better." She nodded, apparently satisfied, and looked out the window, and did not ask anything else, because she was 7, and she had what she needed, which was her father, in the front seat, and the answer being yes. He ran into Raymond twice more in the weeks that followed. Once at the park, where Raymond was at the fountain bench again with what appeared to be a fresh paper bag of bread. Once at the dry cleaner on the corner, which was a coincidence so unremarkable that it barely registered. Both times they talked for a while. About the job, the first time. About nothing in particular, the second. The conversations had the easy quality of two people who have already done the important talking and are now just enjoying the fact of each other. Lily asked about Raymond again one afternoon, unprompted. Marcus had been making dinner, and she had been sitting at the table drawing something with her colored pencils, and she looked up and said, out of nowhere, "Is the man with the birds your friend?" Marcus thought about the word, what it contained, what the space between two men who met on a park bench and in a parking lot and in a laundromat actually was. He thought about jumper cables and a name on a piece of paper, and the way a person can change the direction of a life, not through any grand gesture, but simply by showing up at the right time and being the kind of person who keeps their jumper cables in the trunk. He thought about what Lily would understand at 7, and what would make sense to her. "Yes," he said, "he is my friend." She went back to her drawing. She was drawing a fountain, he could see, with birds around it. He watched her for a moment. Somewhere across the city, in an apartment that was too quiet in the evenings, Raymond Okafor was having dinner. On his phone, in the messages, was a thread with a name that had not been active for 7 years. The last message in that thread was 3 weeks old, and had been sent by Raymond at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, from the parking lot of a strip mall. A short message, just, "It's your father. I know it has been too long. I am sorry. If you are willing, I would like to talk." The reply had come the next morning, and it had started something. Not a resolution, not a clean ending to 7 years of silence. Just a beginning, which is what most real things are. Not the end of something hard, but the start of something careful, and slow, and worth the difficulty. That Sunday, Raymond's son drove 4 hours and they had lunch together at a diner Raymond knew. It was awkward in the way that honest things are when they have been avoided for a long time. There were silences that did not quite fill. There were things that were said imperfectly. There were things that were not yet ready to be said at all. Raymond called it a good lunch. Not because everything was fixed, but because they were both there, and that had been the part that was missing, and having it back, even imperfectly, even with all the work still ahead, was worth more than the 7 years of its absence. He did not tell Marcus this for a while. Some things are not yet ready to be said out loud. Some things need to be lived with for a period before they can be handed to another person. Eventually, on a Thursday afternoon when they were both at the fountain bench and Lily was walking the stone border with her arms out, Raymond told him, "Not all of it. The shape of it. Enough." Marcus listened the way Raymond had listened to him in the laundromat, without interrupting, without offering anything other than attention. When Raymond finished, Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I am glad," he said. Raymond looked at the fountain. "Me too," he said. Lily came back from the stone border, slightly out of breath, entirely satisfied with herself. "I made it all the way around," she announced. "We saw," Marcus said. She looked at Raymond. "Did you see?" "Every step," Raymond said. She smiled her mother's smile, and ran back to try it again. They sat on the bench, the two of them, in the afternoon warmth. The fountain went on. The water caught the light. In the distance, a bus moved along the avenue, and a dog went by on a leash, and a woman walked past carrying groceries, and the world continued its ordinary business, indifferent and beautiful, giving nothing away about what it might offer next. The story had not ended. It did not end. That was the actual truth of it, the thing that does not make it into the simple version of events, the version that wraps at the point where everything is resolved, and the lesson is clear. Life is not organized that way. It continues in increments, in small Thursdays, in conversations that have no particular agenda, in the slow repair of things that were broken, and the slow building of things that are new, and in the unceremonious daily effort of being a person who chooses to show up when it would have been easier not to. Marcus Webb had lost his job on a Tuesday morning because he was 3 minutes late. He had sat in a hospital the night before it with his daughter's hand in his. He had found a stranger on a park bench in a parking lot and a laundromat, and the stranger had jumper cables and a name and 31 years of knowing how to be present for another person without making a performance of it. He had called a number on a piece of paper, and the right person had picked up. He had gotten a better job. He had walked his daughter to the bus and picked her up from school and made oatmeal with a brown sugar circle every morning. And none of it was clean or perfect, or arranged the way things are arranged in the version where everything works out tidily at the end. It was just real. It was continuing. It was the specific and ongoing work of being two people where there used to be three, and finding, in the middle of the hardest stretch of it, that the world had placed exactly the right person in the same parking lot at the same time. That is the whole of it, and it is enough.